What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to tips, tricks, and techniques for your string instrument. What we're going to be looking at today is the very basic beginnings of tuning a viola. So what I'm going to go through in this particular video is I am going to demonstrate how to tune your viola with an app. And the app that I'm going to be using today is called Bandmate. I'm going to put a link for that in the description down below. But the reason I like using Bandmate is that it has a staff that it shows us, and it shows us where our note is on the staff. So sometimes we think we're tuning up to the correct note, but sometimes we're going too high and our ear is kind of playing tricks on us. And what the staff will show us is that we are going too high and we're getting too close to our next string up. And so we can correct that and get our note right to where it needs to be. So the first thing we're going to see when we are looking at Bandmate is in the top right, or at the very top of the screen, we have the name of an instrument. And the first time you open it, it's probably not going to be your instrument. So we're going to tap on the instrument name up there. It's going to give us a whole list of instruments, and we're going to look for viola. So what your screen should look like now is we have our alto clef, and we have our staff of 5 lines right there in the middle. Then if we look down to the very bottom of our staff, at the very bottom of the screen, we see a bar. And on our bar we have, in the very middle, we have one big hash mark, and then we also have our little tuning arrow that moves underneath of it. On both the left and right sides of our middle mark, we have smaller hash marks. And then if we get all the way out to the left side, we see that it says -50. If we go all the way out to the right side, we see that it says +50. And so what this means is that we are actually halfway towards the note on either side of the note that we are currently playing. So if we're at -50, it means that our string is probably too loose. If we're at +50, it means that our string is probably too sharp, too tight. So if it's slider is on the left side, it means we're too low. And if the slider is on the right side, we're too high, usually. What we're looking at, just to go over briefly, when we're tuning, we're going to be looking at 2 different parts of our viola here. So we have our pegs that we're going to be working with, as we have here. And then we also have our fine tuners, which are down on our tailpiece. Not all instruments come with fine tuners, but hopefully most of them do, and hopefully yours does. Especially for beginning tuning, this is very helpful. So the first thing we're going to do, actually right before we jump in, just to note, our order for our strings, if your viola is strung correctly, if your viola is facing you, on the left side, on the right side, our bottom peg on the right side is going to be for our A string. If we go up on the right side, our top peg is going to be for our D string. If we go to the left side, our top peg is for our G string. If we go all the way down on the left side, our bottom peg is for our C string. So we have A all the way over, D, switching sides, G, and then all the way down, C. So we have a nice little rectangle there. And then for our fine tuners, it's just going to go across. You can see where it attaches to each string. So when we're looking at Bandmate, if we play our first note, we'll start with A. It's a very typical note for us to start on when we're tuning string instruments. It'll show us the note on the left side that we're currently playing. It'll show us where that note is on the staff. And then our slider along the bottom will show us if it is sharp or flat. And then in this case, I have an A flat, which not quite where we want to be. And to make matters worse, it's actually a really low A flat. So what this means for us is we are going to take our tuning peg for the A string, and we are going to turn it away from us. And that's going to make our string tighter. However, looking at our app now, I have over-tightened to a B above our staff. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen our peg just a little bit. And we're going to try and get it close to an A. There we are, much closer. And what we're going to also try and do, as we're using the peg, is turn it as small increments as possible. So what I'm going to try now, because I've gotten close, but I'm having trouble getting my peg to line up right where I need it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fine tuner here, and I'm going to twist it counterclockwise to loosen our string a little bit more. I'm going to try and get our slider there to line up right in the middle. So our arrow turns, hopefully, green. There we are. So now we move down to our D string, our next one over. My D string is actually pretty close. So I'm going to actually skip using my peg, and I'm just going to go to my fine tuner here. So, as we're going through, turning counterclockwise to loosen it just a little bit. And there we are, nice green arrow there. Now we move down to our G string. And as we can see, our G string is actually sitting in a G flat. So what we're going to want to do is go back to using our peg. So I've got my G peg here. I'm going to turn it away from me. And there we've got much closer to where we want to be. Turn it just a little more. Oh, sorry. So now we're just a little bit above, a little bit to the right of our middle line. So what we'll do again is we're going to move over to our G fine tuner. We're going to loosen that just a little bit, so that way we can move carefully towards our center hash mark. As we can see, I've got green on both sides, but I'm not quite there. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and go with it. And then that takes us to our last string, our C string. So, looking at where we are a little bit too high. So again, I'm actually just going to use my fine tuner here and loosen it just a little bit. And there, actually, that's pretty much spot on. Yeah. So, that's how we go through our process of tuning very basically with our peg and our fine tuner. But something to know is that there will be times where our tuning peg is a little too tight, and when it's too tight, what we're going to want to do is we'll wiggle it a little bit back and forth and try and loosen it. You can hear mine creaking, so mine are very tight in there. We'll loosen it, and then we'll re-tighten it. And hopefully get it nicely back in tune there. So that way, it's at a point where it is easy for us to turn. And then there will also be some times where our peg is too loose and it won't stay where we want it to. So if that happens, what we're actually going to do is we're going to take our peg, and as we're turning it away from us to tighten, we're going to also push across. So that way, this little bit that we see here on the outside, on the other side, is going to push through a little bit more. And that's going to give it a little more friction to hold our peg nicely in place. Remember, as we're tuning, we're going to want to make sure, with our pegs at least, that we are moving them slowly. We don't want to end up with a broken string, and we don't want our peg to slip and for our string to unwind up here. It's very easy. Sorry. It is possible to put the string back on the tuning peg, but sometimes it can be a little tricky, so we try to avoid that. The other thing that we'll run into sometimes is that our fine tuners down here will actually be too close to our tailpiece for us to be able to turn them. And when that happens, we'll want to back our fine tuner up about 2/3 of the way, and then we'll have to retune with the peg. So when we're looking at our tuner line on the bottom bar, and we have our 2 hash marks just outside of the middle, we're going to want to consider only using our fine tuners when we get inside those 2 hash marks so we can make small adjustments. So yeah, thank you for tuning in to Tips, Tricks, and Techniques.